Welcome into First Stop Sports, your first stop for the best sports debates. I'm your host, Nate Long, and joining me today is Jake Helton and Hunter Baker. We're talking about the NFL Hall of Fame and whether or not these players should get in or they stay out. Maybe the Hall of Very Good, as I've heard a couple of times. Obviously, this year, Drew Brees and Larry Fitzgerald probably going to be that first ballot Hall of Famer. We're not really going to talk about them much today. There's not really much debate over there. So we'll first start with Reggie Wayne, hometown kid for the Colts. He had over 1,000 receptions, 1,400 yards receiving, 82 touchdowns. He ranks 10th in both receiving yards and, looking at receptions as well. 6-time Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro, one time, Super Bowl champion. What is the case for him, and do you guys think he gets in or not?
I think growing up, I watched a lot of him as well, and I think he does get in, but I think back then he was a little bit overshadowed by Marvin Harrison. I feel like with Marvin Harrison, he was just, we all know that he was really good. So I'm not saying Reggie Wayne's bad whatsoever because he wasn't, but I just think the talent, if it wasn't for Marvin Harrison, I think he would have already been in my opinion, because he's just overshadowed by Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, I think when I look at it, the big things that stick out to me, obviously Super Bowl champion, and then the first team All-Pro. That's something that I look at just because if you're better than everyone else, you probably deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. That's a good signal right there. And then Pro Bowls don't weigh as much for me personally, just because it is just an all-star game. It's cool that you got voted to go do that, but at the end of the day, I don't think that really adds to your career. That's just more of a fun part of the NFL, in my opinion. And then you look at the stats, almost 15,000 yards, almost 100 touchdowns. This guy balled out every time he was on the field. He's a reliable option. I think that's really my thing, is he was just a very reliable guy. You knew when the ball was going his direction.
Yeah,
he was
for sure.
Probably coming down with the ball. So I'd say that's a for sure.
And you're also talking about a guy that had Pro Bowl selection 6 times. So, it's not I think probably towards the end, it was a little bit inconsistency. And I also think that Peyton Manning also helped him out a lot. Clearly, I think we all know that, but because you're only going to be as good as your quarterback and the rest of your offense. So I think he deserves to be in there. For sure.
That's really the argument for the next guy. I think Wayne has a little bit more separation from Manning, just because he was very good.
He was still pretty good with Andrew Luck as well.
No, 100%. 100%.
And when you look at Reggie Wayne as a player, and for the Colts, and he was always with pretty good teams. I think overall, Colts won a lot because of Peyton Manning. And you look at he has the numbers, but this is, I think, year 6, I believe, of him being eligible, and he's still not making that cut. What makes it different this year? Is it just because everyone else who's better probably has already made it?
I think so. I think it's just finally he's reached the top of that list where it's his turn to get in. That was the thing with Sterling Sharp last year. He was eligible for a while, finally got his way in. I think this is just Reggie Wayne finally working his way up the ranks, getting in there. Stats-wise, you're not going to say, okay, this is an automatic in the Hall of Fame, but you put together the entire career. You can't knock him for being a part of good teams, because he's part of the reason why those teams were good. So especially being one of the better receivers, if not the best receiver in Colts history, I think probably right behind Harrison. But
I think you got to go second there.
I think Dallas Clark is probably first. Not even tight end. Dallas Clark is one of the best receivers, in my opinion. I know that's a hot take. Marvin Harrison is a great, he's a tight end, but still, you could make that argument that Dallas Clark Dallas Clark's definitely the best tight end that ever played in the NFL.
When you look at it overall, Reggie Wayne is 10th in receiving yards, and he's one of the 10 best, in that category. I think that kind of pushes you over. We'll see a guy in a couple of minutes, though, who is in the top 10, but people really don't have the same opinion. But we'll go back to what you guys were talking about earlier with another wide receiver, Julian Edelman, a Patriots wide receiver, a guy who really didn't do a lot in the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs and kind of talking about the team he had around him with Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, is a guy who put up a lot of stats because he played in a lot of games. As you can see, kind of where I'm heading. My opinion is with Julian Edelman. Look at some of his career stats. 620 receptions, only 6,800 yards receiving during the regular season, and 36 touchdowns. But you look in the playoffs, he's second in 2 categories, catches and yards, 118 and 1,442. Obviously, he's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. And the one reason why I think that they put him in the conversation is he does have that Super Bowl MVP. So I want to start first with Jake this time. Jake, is he in? Is he not? What's your thoughts?
I think he should be. I don't know why people hate on Julian Edelman. I think it's just because he was a part of that Patriots team that everybody kind of hates everyone from that era, at least from the Patriots. Julian Edelman is a very good receiver. He's in my opinion, the only reason they had a chance to win that game against Atlanta, that comeback win. He made the big catch at the end of that game to allow them to continue their drive. The Super Bowl MVP, obviously the best player in that Super Bowl. He was just a reliable guy. I felt like anytime that he was Tyreek Hill before Tyreek Hill was there for Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady was just throwing it down the field and hoping Julian Edelman was down there. Edelman also, I'm pretty sure he returned punts or kicks or something of the like. He was a good return man.
Beginning of his career, he returned kicks kind of similar to Tyreek Hill itself. And I turn to you, Hunter, now. What are your thoughts on Julian Edelman and Hall of Fame or not?
I think he deserves to be in, but I think the main reason why is instead of saying he's Tyreek Hill, I think he's one of those guys where he's a playmaker, and I think he's a really reception guy. Like, he's going to catch the ball no matter what's thrown at him. I don't necessarily think that, I do agree with he's down there somewhere, but I just think with Tom Brady and him, he was the guy to where, you could run across from the left side of the field to the right under pressure, and he's going to catch it one hand on the ground. Because I've seen some crazy catches from him when he caught it in between someone's legs. He dove their body, still caught it through the legs of multiple defenders. So I think in terms of possession, he's one of the best. In terms of recs, he's one of the best guys.
I don't look it up to double check, but Julian Edelman's from Kent State.
Yeah.
You know anything about Kent State football? He just got beat by 50 by Oklahoma this weekend. It's not a good.
Without Jonathan about the
that's what I'm saying.
But I mean, when you look at Julian Edelman as a player, only 6,800 yards receiving during the regular season.
Right.
And that's why he's not going to be in this year, I don't think. I think it's going to be multiple years for him. I think it's kind of like a Sterling Sharp, I think, in my mind. Somebody who's going to take maybe 20, 30 years after he's done playing to finally get that nod into the Hall of Fame just because of how great he was during the playoffs. When the lights were the brightest, he showed out. And that is why when I look at Julian Edelman, I don't think he gets in this year. It's 2026. But I think, eventually down the road, I think he will get in because, and only because of that Super Bowl MVP. I think that is the only reason why he gets in down the road.
I mean, I think it's also a part of the teams that he was a part of. I feel like that kind of plays into, at least with some of their picks to go into the Hall of Fame, they'll look at a whole career and say, okay, well, you played for this team when they were at their best. This team was also really good while you were there. Maybe you're a common denominator. We'll throw you in the Hall of Fame. I will say there's some people in there that don't always deserve to go in. So
that's
you never know. Julian Edelman could sneak his way in. I think he deserves to be in. Like you said, I kind of do agree he's probably not going to make it in this year, but I think he still should. This year, next 3 or 4, I think he's got a chance.
I think the biggest thing is the stats, and you look at this just straight numbers, and obviously winning is a big thing. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. Can't take that away from him. Just the stats when it comes to the regular season, I just don't stack up, especially when you look back to the player we just talked about in Reggie Wayne. I mean, Reggie Wayne has almost 8,000 more yards receiving than Julian Edelman.
Reggie Wayne also has 500, 600 more catches. So you could argue that if you gave Julian Edelman 600 more receptions, you could argue that he gets into that.
Hunter, but
sure.
in that same argument,
short receiver.
Right? That's what I'm saying. But you got to think about why Peyton Manning's chucking deep to Reggie Wayne, one-on-one coverage. Julian Edelman's making plays across the field because you got to think about it. They also had Gronk. Okay. They also had their big receivers.
That's another thing to kind of point out with the Edelman case is that he had so many better receivers playing with him at any time. Randy Moss was there at the beginning of his start, or the end of Randy Moss, beginning of Julian Edelman.
So let's go into that a little bit. He wasn't the best wide receiver on his team.
Yeah.
So that's still kind of
the guys that were better than him are all Hall of Famers.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
No,
that is true. No, but does that hurt his case? He is a 3-time Super Bowl champion.
Well, he's not the biggest guy either.
He wasn't the best wide receiver at the time. And
I said a second ago. I said short receiver.
How tall is he? 5'9", maybe 5'8",
something like that.
Somewhere around there. You got to think about it though. Even with how small he was, I mean, I'm taking him to make any crazy catch. If it's a crazy catch, he's gonna come down with it somehow.
Well, he was maybe maybe not at the same volume, but he was your Cooper Kupp, your
100%.
He was your guy that's going to go out, get you 10, 11 receptions, 150 yards, maybe a touchdown or two, and that was what he provided for this team. That's what they needed at the time, and maybe Julian Edelman is the all-time role player, if you want to put it in basketball terms.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the all-time role player, but there are role players in the Hall of Fame for the NBA. I don't see why he doesn't deserve, because he played his role better than anybody else on that team.
I want to mention that, like, the playoffs too. Like if it, like how you mentioned, like the Super Bowl from Atlanta and everything, the comeback. I think with how consistent he was in the playoffs, and he really made a statement in the playoffs. Like in the regular season, I understand because, like you said, Gronk, everybody else, but in the playoffs, he was there and he contributed a lot, especially that comeback win against Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you look at Julian Edelman and him as a whole, obviously he played really well, but you look at how many games he played in the playoffs. He played 19 games. So 19 games to have a pretty good season overall, because you think about his playoff stats, 1,400 yards in a little bit of an extended season. That's a pretty good stat. That's what he has in the playoffs. But we'll move on now to another pass catcher, but does a little bit more blocking. Jason Witten, tight end, mostly played with the Cowboys. I think his whole career played for the Cowboys. A guy, when you look at him, he's got the numbers to back him up. 1,200 receptions, over 13,000 yards, 74 touchdowns. He ranks top 2 for both for receptions and yards. 11-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, Walter Payton Man of the Year. I think this is probably one of the easiest ones we'll talk about, just because when you're the second best in receiving yards and catches for your position, I think you kind of have to get in.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the stats and make a case through that, but you can also just look at the fact that he's an NFL broadcaster now. He's doing halftime shows. That's going to be something that they're going to want to boost up as well, get their guy going. They're like, oh, we got a Hall of Famer on the squad now.
So now it's politics, it sounds like.
I think a little bit can go into that, especially when you get with all these guys moving over to the broadcast side of things. Mm-hmm. Maybe you want to promote your guys, but, I mean, either way, this guy, no way Witten doesn't make it in. 1,300 receptions for a tight end is insane, and then basically averaging 10 yards per catch, maybe a little bit more than 10 yards per catch, 74 touchdown. If he doesn't make it in, I'm gonna be questioning who was making the decisions on who got in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see how he doesn't get in, especially I think with also the consistency and everything else. I just think the way how the number, like you said, you could argue for the numbers and everything like that. Like, there's no way he doesn't get in, but I also think it's the consistency level and the blocking. It's not like he was just, clearly he was a reception guy, but he could block too. He was a big guy. So I think it was just, he could do whatever you needed him to do, and he'd do it. And he was consistent with it. So I think that's an easy pick right there.
I think that's enough said about Jason Witten. I think he's a guy who is probably going to make it into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And it may be this year, maybe the year after, but it's going to be in the next couple of years. We'll see Jason Witten in the Hall of Fame wearing that gold jacket. As we move on to the next one, a guy that, played with a really good Panthers team in the Super Bowl against the Broncos, linebacker Thomas Davis. Doesn't have the most, outlandish stats-wise. 1,200 tackles, 28 sacks, 18 interceptions, and 24 fumbles. Only a 3-time Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro 1 time, and a Walter Payton Man of the Year as well. So a good person on and off the field. But one of the things he's, known for this toughness, 3 ACL tears. He's come back from all 3. I mean, just a really good player. Does he have enough to make that step into the Hall of Fame? Or is he just going to be one of those guys who kind of stays in the Hall of Very Good?
I think that, it took me a minute to think about who he was, but then I remembered. I think with how he led the team on the field and everything, when you have 3 ACL tears and you come back, a lot of people are going to walk away. And I think for him coming back and gathering that defense and everything and being a leader, especially in that moment, 3 ACL tears, as you said. And I think that with the way he could hit, the way he recognized the field, I mean, when you're a linebacker, you could just say, oh, that's common knowledge. But in my opinion, seeing him command the defense, I think is really good. And I think the leadership's there. Like you said, he doesn't have the craziest numbers, but I think it's the aspect of the comeback story for him and still being able to play at a high level that.
We're definitely seeing that this year with it not being a given of your linebackers knowing what they're doing. A lot of clueless linebackers in the NFL this year. But I don't know that this is an automatic in the stats. I'm a little iffy on the stats. You get the Pro Bowl. First team All-Pro, that's definitely going to help his case, but no Super Bowl appearance.
Oh, he had the one.
Or no Super Bowl win,
No Super Bowl win,
He was on the team, but I still think they should have won that game. But we'll keep that aside. I just don't know that the stats warrant a spot in the Hall of Fame. You can tear as many ACLs as you want. I don't know that necessarily means you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of guys who have been injured throughout their career. I mean, you can look at Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman is a guy who dealt with quite a bit of injury throughout his career. So I think just because, it's good that he was tough. He was able to come back, and especially for this Panthers fan base, it was good to see him back on the field after every single one of those. And you talk about the leadership, and if you want to consider it longevity through the injury, then I just don't know that is tearing your ACL 3 times. That doesn't mean you make it to the Hall of Fame, in my opinion.
I just think it's like what you do with it. Like, I'm not talking about like how you tear your ACL 3 times and you come back and you play. I think it's like what you're willing to do at the practice, the rehab, still encouraging your teammates to be the best that they can do. It's being like, I think it's all about like being a leader, and not to mention, just like I said, like being a leader. You know what I'm saying? Because like when you have 3 ACL tears, you can have that attitude, that mindset of like, man, I don't want to do this anymore, and it can affect the team. So I think if you keep them together, it's pretty good.
What I'm hearing from both of you, it sounds like that Thomas Davis is not a Hall of Famer in the NFL, but he is a Hall of Famer when it comes to leadership, being a team guy.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys.
Teammate. I'd say Hall of Fame
for
teammate.
sure.
He's a Hall of Fame teammate. He's a guy who's going to be up. He's going to be sticking. He's going to be the guy you go to for anything. And that's where we're going to kind of leave it off with Thomas Davis. Obviously, stats not really getting him there. The next guy also doesn't have the crazy amount of stats, but the one thing he does have going for him is that he has a nickname. His defense had a nickname, the Legion of Boom. We're talking about Earl Thomas, safety.
I think
for
absolutely.
the Seahawks.
There's no way he doesn't make it.
Absolutely, he gets in for sure. This guy, I mean, I've been playing. I'm not just going to relate him to a video game, but his cards in Madden are absolutely insane. And I'm telling you, like, there is no different from how he played. Like, watching him play, I think, like, you can make an argument clearly, like Brian Dawkins and stuff like that, like Weapon X and whatnot. But Earl Thomas, watching him lay hits on people, like, dude, he just flew. And he recognized the field so much. I know he only has 713 tackles, but for safety, he has
I was going to say,
30
I don't know
interceptions.
that for
No, that's
safety,
what I'm saying.
you don't want tackles.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying.
Something else isn't happening
For sure.
right for your
But I
team.
still think 30 interceptions is like, it's 67 passes defended, or
I think 30 interceptions was tied for like 81st in the NFL all time. So
I
nothing
will say,
great.
I think with this defense, you do got to look at a couple of things. They weren't going for interceptions. They were
they were coming out to take you out of the season. Like,
They're coming to kill people,
Him and
right?
Cam Chancellor were.
But at the same time, with him being at the Legion of Boom, you're talking about Cam Chancellor. You're talking about a lot of other people on that field. So at the same time, those stats, like, you could argue that, like, they're not the craziest, and as you said, like, you don't want tackles. But dude, at this point, they weren't even tackling. They were just going to hit you, and that ball was coming out. Like,
with all the good players on that defense, he was considered the leader of.
No,
that
100%.
defense.
I agree. I would make the argument that Cam Chancellor was right next to him, but at the same time, like, one of those two, if you have to go up
Richard
against
Sherman's
any
up there
of those,
as well. Bobby Wagner,
for sure.
This defense
Bobby Wagner was another
You're
big
not
part.
safe anywhere on the field.
really good. But we'll go a little bit into the stats and the accolades and something that Jake, you talk about a lot. It means a lot. He's a 3-time first-team All-Pro. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, and like we mentioned, one of the key members of the Legion of Boom. Was he number 1 though? Is that something we can say?
I think you put either Cam or Bobby. And the only reason why I think Wagner was the leader of that team was, first of all, because that's their middle linebacker. And as you say now, like, linebackers not necessarily doing their job good enough. Back then, I don't think Bobby Wagner really messed up much. And considering that the fact that he's still in the league now, and I still think he's consistent. Like, I am clearly like with age, but I still would hate to.
Playing well for the Commanders.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I think the consistency. I think he was the leader of that Legion of Boom, in my opinion.
I think we're all three in agreement. Earl Thomas going to be making the Hall of Fame pretty shortly, pretty soon. As we move into a guy who doesn't have the great stats, he's 117 as a starter, so exactly 500. A quarterback who has won 2 Super Bowls. a quarterback who beat Tom Brady twice, Eli Manning, is up for the Hall of Fame. Well, before we go into anything, I know Jake already has an opinion, but we'll go into the stats. 57,000 yards passing, 10th all-time, 366 touchdowns, a lot of interceptions, 244, and he's a two-time champ, two-time Super Bowl MVP, and a four-time Pro Bowler. As I turn to both, we'll start with Jake. Eli Manning, Hall of Fame? Yes?
There's no way he's not. This is the 2010s in a nutshell right here. I mean, you got Eli Manning, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. Those were the three big guys. Drew Brees, I'll throw him in there as well. Those were like your four big guys that were, everybody wanted to watch them. Everybody wanted to play with those guys. And those were the teams that were at the top of the league. Now you look at what teams are at the top. It's who's got the good quarterbacks, the Ravens and Lamar, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. It just, when you have a good quarterback, it makes your team a lot better. Obviously, the Giants had a pretty solid defense to stand behind. But when they came here to Indy and played for the Super Bowl, I mean, like, that was pretty awesome for Indy as one. But and maybe I am just a little bit biased, but I think the Manning name almost gives you an automatic in unless you're Arch Manning.
Well, I think he's going to get in at some point because, like, as you said, it's the 2000s and whatnot and 2010s. I just think that his brother played a lot better. I think we all can agree that. And I think that if we're just going off, like, not postseason, you take away those Super Bowls, I don't think he gets in. And the reason why is because those interceptions are just so high. I think he was very inconsistent. Because you 117, 366 touchdowns, 244 interceptions. Like, I think that if you take away those Super Bowls against Tom Brady, I don't think he gets in. I really don't. And that's just my opinion. Like, I'm not saying he's bad. That's not what I'm saying. He's 10th all time in passing. But I'm just saying that if you take away those Super Bowls, does he get in? That's the way I look at it.
Eli Manning does have one more interception than Drew Brees. I will say that. I know you had a heated debate about Drew Brees earlier. Earlier on this show.
I'm just saying that.
But I think that
he definitely does get in. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
I think he gets in. He's not. I mean, and that's another conversation to have. And we didn't really have it for a lot of these guys because I think some of these guys, you can consider they're one of the best when they played. At a certain time in history, they were the best when they played. When you look at Eli Manning, I don't think Eli Manning was a top 3 quarterback any time of his career.
I was also wondering the same thing. He won the MVP in both Super Bowls that they won. So, like, I'm wondering who was on the team because, like,
so, I mean, but it is credit to him. But when you look into the NFL, obviously Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees. I mean, I don't think at any point in his career he was really considered a top 3 quarterback. Aaron Rodgers in the second half. I mean, think about all the players that you would have ahead of Eli Manning.
Right, but Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, as I think all could agree, and I'm not glazing, but we're a different caliber than Drew Brees and Eli Manning, in my opinion. Like,
I completely agree with you. Jackson would not, because Jackson's a big Saints fan.
When you compare those two names and those stats between the two, especially in interceptions, not even, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what'd you say? Drew Brees has one more than Eli Manning, or one less interception?
Yeah.
So when you talk about inconsistency, like, I think people just look at an organization and how that quarterback was really good for him and be like, Hall of Fame. Like, people like Giants, they think Eli Manning, Hall of Fame. When people think Colts, they think, like Peyton Manning and stuff. Yeah. I just think it just overshadows, like, the team itself overshadows how good the player actually is. So I just think that you take away those Super Bowls, I don't think he gets it.
He did that good in the Super Bowls.
That's what I'm saying.
But he beat a very good Patriots team.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Had a top 5 defense at the time. I mean, he had a 55% completion rate in the first time, 75 the second game. He played much better in that second game.
Also, I mean, one of those games, helmet catch was the big reason why they won.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, you got some things that happen that really, push him over the top. I think the name gets him in. I think he'll get in eventually. I just don't know if he. In my book, he's the Hall of Very Good. I don't think he's.
I think he's Hall of Mediocre.
Another thing to throw in there is that the Super Bowls are 4 years apart. I think that's something else to take into consideration. Occasionally, you'll win one. Like, you look at the Eagles and the time when they won with. Was it Carson Wentz was their quarterback? Or Nick Foles?
Yeah, Carson Wentz started the season. Nick Foles came in relief after he got hurt. But yes,
you look at that Eagles team and. Right after that, the Eagles weren't that good. But then they move on to Jalen Hurts and build a new dynasty. But they stuck with Eli Manning through 10 years or whatever it was.
Okay, one thing to note, though, in my opinion, before we get on to the next one, I think that back then it's a completely different ballgame than it is now. We see a lot of hybrid QBs. We see a lot of people that could do that. You didn't see Peyton Manning or Eli Manning rushing for 100 yards a game. You'd never seen that. Or Tom Brady. You're talking about guys that are running the same 40s as D linemen. So, but can throw the ball 80 yards down the field. Yeah. So it's a completely different ball case now than it is back then. And I think we can all understand that.
I think we all believe that Eli Manning will get in eventually.
Oh, yeah,
I think he will. Sure. In my book, though, I just don't have him as a guy who's a real Hall of Famer. I think he's just a Hall of Very Good. As we move on to the next one, a guy who is third in the NFL all time for rushing yards, a guy who kind of bounced around a little bit, mostly known for his 49er and Colts days in my mind, Frank Gore, running back. Obviously, I think this is really easy. When you look at, he's third all time for rushing. I think anyone in that top five or in any category, I mean, you kind of have to get in. That's kind of my opinion.
He's on the tail end of like what you would consider the running back era. I don't even know if you want to consider it, but they don't run the ball like they used to. You have right now in the NFL, I would say for the past 3-4 years, you've had two good running backs and the rest have just been mediocre. Go back to 10, 20 years before Gore was in the league, every team had an elite running back. So this is kind of that shift, and he still produced the numbers that those guys were producing 10, 20 years when they were getting sometimes twice as many carries per game as he was. So I think that's one thing to look at is how efficient he was with his rushes. 16,000 yards pretty much speaks for itself. I like you said, that I don't know what else you can say about him.
Yeah, and one of the things you talk about Frank Gore and one of the hits to his resume is that kind of what we talked about when we were going against Eli Manning was, what year was Frank Gore maybe the best in the game? I mean, I don't think he has many of those seasons where he was the best. He doesn't have any first-team All-Pros. He has 5 Pro Bowls, but he wasn't the best at one season. But he has longevity, and I think longevity gets him in almost obviously.
You might look at him like I'm trying to think of like a good comparison, maybe a Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is a really good running back, but he's never been the best per se. So but I still think if he put up 16,000 rushing yards, we would still be like, yeah, Josh Jacobs probably deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that you're talking, 1,600 football field lengths? I mean, that's pretty crazy for just to run on your feet.
And the craziest thing I think in my mind, and this is kind of stepping aside from Hall of Fame, is that he rushed for exactly 16,000 yards.
I was going to ask you that if that was like an approximation or
nope, that is the exact number that Frank Gore rushed, which I think is also crazy that he on the dot 16,000.
I think that he absolutely deserves to get in, and the reason why I think is because consistency. But I think when you talk about his best years, I think it was definitely with the 49ers. And I think that if the 49ers built around him, he should, because he's never won a Super Bowl. And I think he's one of those running backs since he's just been in the league for so long. He's been on different teams. He's been on 5 NFL teams. I think that when you talk about players that deserve a ring, I think he is one because he would give it his all. He was very consistent, in my opinion.
Hall of the NFL.
Right. I just like.
Wow.
I just saying that I think he deserves to get in for sure, and I think he's very consistent and a leader. And like I said, the 49ers, if they were to build around him, and we talk about Super Bowl, deep run playoffs, I think he would be so much better off in the case.
I talked about that transition. He was also one of the better receiving backs
during
his time, which is something that you got to throw in there too. Almost 500 catches and 5 Pro Bowls.
I think it was around 3,000 total yards over 16 years or 15 years, whatever it was.
So. For a running back at that time, that's a lot of yards. Now it's become a thing where if you're a running back, you don't catch the ball 5 times in a game, you're not doing your job. But back then it was just run, and that was exactly what Frank Gore was. He was a put the shoulder pad in your chest and I'm getting 5 extra yards type of running back, and that's what he did every time he touched the ball. I just feel like he was too dominant not to put on this list.
Yeah, I agree. I think Frank Gore is making the Hall of Fame. I think it's within the next couple of years as well. And to wrap up the show, we're going to bounce around a little bit, and we are going to talk about a guy who actually was, Eli Manning and Philip Rivers, kind of a connected history. Philip Rivers, though, stats-wise, He's sixth all time with 63,000 passing yards. Also sixth in touchdowns with 421. He's an 8-time Pro Bowler. He was an NFL passing yards leader. Doesn't have any playoff success. And that's kind of where we're going to go to. I think he's a better quarterback than Eli Manning, but
100%.
Does he get in, though, without the Super Bowls?
I think he does, because you could even look at it from Eli Manning's perspective. He didn't play great in the Super Bowls. And I think that Phillip Rivers, again, unfortunately, it's it's the team itself. I think between him and Antonio Gates, arguably one of the, I would say, top 3 duo of all time, in my opinion, because Antonio Gates, as we know, got inducted last year. So I think Phillip Rivers, with how consistent he is, and he's definitely a better quarterback than Eli Manning. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Eli Manning has 2 wins over the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. So I think that even without this, these stats are it's just too good, and he's consistent. And he was always loyal to the Chargers for that long time. And then he played one season with the Colts.
Yeah, that's probably why I'm going to say no, because we did to the Colts. But just looking at. Yes, it's stats. This is just going to come back to the Drew Brees, Tom Brady debate. Do you care more about championships? Do you care more about stats?
Exactly.
I don't think the stats necessarily outweigh the championships, but I just think that career-wise, Phillip Rivers probably had what is looked at as a better career. I think Eli had some years that he struggled a little bit more than what you would see Phillip Rivers. Biggest knock for me is that season with the Colts. They were a playoff team, should have definitely won that game. It was the Bills, wasn't it? Lost on field goal,
yeah,
but should have won that game.
Mm-hmm. And you look at Phillip Rivers as a whole, I think he's better than Eli Manning, but I also think he's below that threshold. I think he is also Hall of Very Good. And I know the stats are great. He played for a long time. He has enough kids to make a football team, so that's kind of cool.
I wouldn't say good. I would say Hall of Very Great. I feel
very great.
I think you have Hall of Fame, you have great, then you have good. And he was better than good, 100%, in my opinion.
No MVPs, no Super Bowl. He never made a Super Bowl.
That's not just on him, though.
But the thing about the quarterback, though, is the most important position on the field.
I agree, but
you finally took my advice.
Did I?
That's what I was telling you the other day. But I will say, having a good passer rating throughout your whole career is one thing. Mm-hmm. It usually tails off towards the back end, but he was still very good with the Colts. That's one thing you want to knock. I wouldn't say that the Chargers ever had an elite defense, not a top 3 defense. I would say that's what I mean by
no. I agree.
I agree with that. Defense. Yeah. So Phillip Rivers had a little bit harder of a time, as you said. Not necessarily some of the best teams, in my opinion. I just think
those offenses are always pretty good. We have Antonio Gates. Antonio Gates, Hall of Fame tight end. LT earlier in his career. Keenan Allen probably won't make the Hall of Fame, but a really solid wide receiver.
Captain of the offense, but he wasn't playing middle linebacker on the defense. When you talk about the defense aspect of things, I think if the defense was better, they're in the playoffs, he gets a bowl for sure.
Talking about that, I would love that conversation when you talk about is Tom Brady the best quarterback of all time. He has the best defenses of all time, which makes him the best winner, but, is he the best quarterback? I don't know, but...
One last thing I want to say about the Phillip Rivers thing is that if you play enough games, you can get enough yards. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you play enough games, you'll just get the stats because that's how it works. Not that he's not good, and it's obviously very hard.
He's very good. He's top 6 in 2 different categories all time. That is really good. Just he doesn't have the accolades really to back it up to where it's not just, he's stat padding. And I think, what's your final opinions? Does he get in? Does he not?
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest question.
I think he gets in for sure.
He probably does. If Eli Manning's he's going to get in before Manning, I would say that.
Okay.
I agree. I agree with that.
Okay. I want Manning in more than I want Phillip Rivers in, but I would say just the way that things go with the Hall of Fame, I think there's a better chance that Phillip Rivers, like you said, the 8 Pro Bowls is probably what's going to help him. He was the best quarterback in 2010.
The top 6.
If you want to say
for the Pro Bowls, he's a top 6 quarterback, I guess, because you usually have 3 on each side, something like that. But we'll end it there. I still think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Very Great, very good. But the way that things are kind of going on with, I would say NFL politics, you would say, I think he's going to get in anyway. But that's where we're going to end it here for First Stop Sports. Big thanks to Jake and Hunter for coming on to the show. Catch us at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays here on Uni TV or on Spotify at First Stop Sports.